Episode 1 of Upload Season 2 starts with Nora sitting in her car, listening to the news. The consciousness of an uploaded pigeon has been successfully downloaded into a new clone. This is, of course, a lovely bit of foreshadowing to explain how one can jump from Lakeview, where Nathan has been uploaded, back into the real world. However, Dave Anthony arrives dressed in a hood, intending to avoid being eyed by any drones that may be buzzing around. Together, they drive to the Ludds while Nathan sits motionless, having run out of data last season. This explains why he hasn't got in touch with Nora, who thinks that Nathan is ghosting him. Anyway, Nora arrives in this rural camp and meets one of the leaders, Mateo. He's certainly one of the more normal members, with quite a few others eccentric and outright weird. Pastor Tom is one such example, while the anti-tech sentiment spread throughout the camp. Meanwhile, Ingrid continues to influence Nathan, and with his 2GB brought back and Nora gone from her angel duties, he's spinning out. Nathan is, of course, still concerned over the murder, and it doesn't help that Ingrid is being a typical Karen, wanting specific things from their new angel, Alicia. Alicia complains about Ingrid to Lucy to such a degree that she actually gets a promotion for her efforts, which catches her off guard. Lucy also allows her to hire a temp, which comes in the form of a woman called Tinsley. She's forced to ditch her jacket though before they get started. In the middle of this, we cut to the NYPD Cybercrimes Unit, with the bloody elevator scene on full display. The man that was taken out by Nathan, the one who tried to kill Nora, was originally chalked up as a cybercrime, but instead, the file is changed to possible homicide. This could be big trouble for Nathan. Nathan, though, is still trying to find Nora, who sneaks in with a cat avatar to avoid detection. Ingrid sits down with Nathan and has a heart-to-heart with him, admitting that she's a bit controlling and understanding. It must be overwhelming that she's shown up out the blue. Nathan opens up and reveals that he fell for someone else, but she's gone now. Unfortunately, cat avatar Nora watches as Nathan kisses Ingrid. Nora heads back to see Mateo and start drinking with him. As she does, Nathan's narration cuts over the top as he admits he loves Nora too, and gushes over how amazing she is. He hopes she's safe and says goodbye to his angel. Episode 2 of Upload Season 2 starts with Nora and Mateo out chopping wood together. Away from technology and distractions, the pair are getting along well. Too well for some, including Pastor Rob, who notices them kissing in public. He even throws over a stern word about what they're doing later on. Meanwhile, Nathan continues to try and find Nora, but to no avail. Nathan is encouraged by Luke to accept that Nora is gone, that the murderer is still on the loose, and Ingrid is still hanging around. In fact, the latter has decided to throw a dinner party. Instead of rejecting this though, Nathan decides to embrace it and try to make a real go of his relationship with Ingrid. However, it also means the angels are going to be busy for catering duties. The dinner does not go to plan though, with the various characters gathered together and a whole dish of awkwardness served up alongside the food. It's actually hilarious, as Ingrid works with the angels to try and improve things. Only it's consistently made worse. So much so, in fact, Ingrid decides to fire them all and just stick to good old-fashioned conversation instead. The chatter turns to Freon and the idea of bringing everyone into Lakeview. Mr. Choke has the right idea, deciding it should be for everyone, and not for the privileged few. Midway through being served, Tinsley appears using the Nora avatar, and starts to serve up food. Nathan is taken aback and tries to talk to her, eventually admitting that she's just a temp. Out on the balcony after dinner, Tinsley ends up speaking to Nathan, who's not exactly happy about her using Nora's avatar. However, Mateo has a plan of his own. He intends to lie to AI guy, whose real name is Boris Netherlands, and make an avatar that Mateo can use to sneak into Lakeview from the gray zone. He wants to mess with Lakeview, claiming it's liberating to work together and do this, toppling the unequal utopia. Nora agrees to help, as Mateo admits he's not anti-tech, but anti-anything that doesn't actually benefit the many. Nora is encouraged by the community to go undercover at Horizon on their behalf. Nora isn't so sure, but Mateo reassures the young woman, claiming this is for the good of the community. She's also teamed up with a rather eccentric guy called Cheeto, who happens to be Ivan. Episode 3 of Upload Season 2 starts with Nora heading off with Ivan back to Horizon. En route though, they drive to Ivan's place, where Nora checks in with Mateo and crashes for the night. Elsewhere, Nathan and Ingrid end up on the phone to Nathan's mother. Unfortunately, she's broke and hasn't paid the rent. She could even lose the place completely, which certainly concerns Nathan. Nathan has an idea though and decides to go full-on Robin Hood, stealing from the rich in Lakeview and giving to the poor. And the poor in this case happens to be those members who only have 2 gig of data. Siphoning off data and cash, he begins to work his magic to balance the power. Interestingly, Detective Sato happens to be working undercover. With a warrant, he begins sniffing around Horizon, listening as Yang mentions the Robin Hood money. Interestingly, Alicia's handed a ring drive in the wake of this, which holds incriminating data involving Luke. Lucy is convinced that this is what Sato is after, given the file holds pretty revealing shots of Luke in the shower. Alicia does end up admiring them though, commenting that he has a cute butt. Elsewhere, Ingrid has errands to run in her real life, so she hires a job gerbil over and has her pretend to be Ingrid in Lakeview for the time being. Her regular spacing out is a direct result of all this, and Ingrid even tells the woman everything about Nathan to make this seem more convincing. When Nora returns to Horizon HQ, the whole place is in uproar when they see her. Of course, Nora is undercover for Mateo, but she watches as Nathan starts stealing funds. But then she also has a big smile on her face too. While she stays quiet about this, Sato and Craig come to Lucy about their concerns regarding data being stolen and Lakeview being manipulated. He knows something doesn't add up here and decides to investigate. Nathan and Luke work together and hold a poker night, with numerous funds up for grabs. The fake Ingrid happens to win every hand, with the whole game rigged by Nathan. He switches the cards that Ingrid holds to make sure she keeps winning. When Lucy and Craig show up, trying to find the penknife that Nathan is using, he tries to talk Ingrid out of continuing, but she goes all in instead. Thankfully, Nora overhears everything and programs the card to change from her computer, while Nathan ditches the penknife across to an old man who absolutely does not remind me of Moleman from Simpsons. Anyway, Alicia speaks to Nora about the ring drive she's been given. She has an idea and decides to send it back to Lucy. Meanwhile, fake Ingrid has a blast with Nathan, so naturally when she hands back over to real Ingrid, who takes the reins for the night, Nathan is delighted. He admits he's had the best day with her and begins kissing her. Ingrid immediately feels guilty. As the episode closes out, Sato checks out the footage from the day in question and notices someone who looks suspiciously like Nora charging inside the building. The picture is blurry though, so we can't be sure. Episode 4 of Upload Season 2 starts with Nora, Mateo and Ivan breaking into SUNY School of Biomedicine. This is the place responsible for the clone bodies used for downloading data, and it links back to that earlier report about pigeons in Episode 1. Anyway, the group begin pulling the plug on all the people that are currently in the tanks, but it's clear Nora isn't sure about the ethics of this. In Lakeview, the prototypes start to spread across the digital world. These are essentially digitalized babies that take the genes from both parents to form a sort of hybrid baby. It's all the trend right now, so naturally, Ingrid wants one. Nathan isn't so sure and convinces her not to. It's family day in Lakeview, and it's an important time to reconnect with loved ones. However, Nathan spies Nora from afar watching while he's playing with his family, and heads over to say hey. When they start talking, Nathan realizes it genuinely is Nora and not Tinsley. Nathan wants to talk to her privately about what's going on, but Nora refuses. In fact, she points out she's seeing someone who's really, really cool. Nathan can tell she's not that happy, but does lavish praise on her new job, calling it a good promotion. While Nevi and Nathan play table tennis, Nathan notices Kannerman wandering around and immediately grows suspicious. He speaks to Nora in private and admits that he believes Kannerman has been compromised by the Ludds. The thing is, Nora is obviously involved with them and points out to Nathan that they're not crazy, and Kannerman isn't one of them. However, she does agree to keep an eye out in case she finds anything untoward. Mateo breaks into Lakeview's AI guy and shows off a hyperworm to Nora, which he boasts is going to completely mess up family day. Mateo claims she's the only one who can pull this off and expresses how much he believes in her. Nora eventually does leave the hyperworm on the desk, but she doesn't seem all that happy about it. The hyperworm causes the AI to go completely haywire all over Horizon as a message comes through to lead the rich. While things are bad inside Lakeview, things are even worse in the office. Everyone frantically tries to stop the worm, but it's Nora who has a change of heart and pulls the plug on her operation. The others are a little concerned, given how fast she's managed to stop it, but Nora shrugs it off and claims it was just luck. She rejects a call from Mateo and heads out the door after work, where everyone gives her a standing ovation. Meanwhile, Ingrid heads back to see Nathan, reflecting on what's happened. As she does, Nathan thinks twice about the prototype idea, with them deciding a baby might not be such a bad idea after all. Episode 5 of Upload Season 2 starts with an alarm waking Nathan up. Ingrid is completely out of it, given she's in the real world. This is, apparently, just a new security system install and nothing to be alarmed about. Meanwhile, Nora speaks to Mateo, who remains dead set on destroying Lakeview, no matter what and no matter who gets caught in the crossfire. With a distance growing between them, Nora decides they need some time apart. So naturally, Nora heads back to work and vents to Alicia about what's happened. She quizzes whether Horizon is responsible for the murders, but Alicia isn't so sure they're behind this. Ingrid shows up to see Lucy, who's fixated on getting her new real fake baby. Lucy encourages her to start with an AI and work her way up, but Ingrid is having none of it, deciding to scream until she gets what she wants. Thankfully, there's a meeting going on, so Lucy has a valid excuse to skip out of this. Until late on, of course, when Lucy returns, realizes Ingrid is still there and decides to give her the baby after all. Thanks to the Lud attack, Horizon decide to step up their security protocols under the guise of a new invasive program called Minfrisk. It's exactly what you may think. This program allows the subject's thoughts to be uploaded and monitored in real time, cutting out free will completely. Nora heads in to warn Nathan, warning him about what's happened. Minfrisk is due to go online soon, but there's no time frame right now. So naturally, that gives them a window to work with, as Nathan worries that Cannerman could actually hear his thoughts about the murders. Given Luke has been watched by Lucy for a while now, he's paranoid and starts to lose it. Alicia's sent in to play damage control, but she hits him too hard and he flies out the window, running away. As fate would have it, Luke's been dreaming about Alicia, and she's now up on DreamHub, which is a sort of adult site where sexual dreams are uploaded. Alicia naturally confronts him about this, but instead of the forceful approach like before, she encourages him to get on the bed with her. Of course, this is all a ploy to get Luke to sleep faster, which works a treat. But then he ends up dreaming of her again anyway. With a clear window of opportunity, Nora heads into Craig's office and realizes the Minfrisk program connects them across to Lakeview. Nora checks out the computer with Nathan, as the pair realize with horror and fascination that Nathan's thoughts are read in real time. Nathan tries to control his thoughts, but he fails, of course, immediately diverting back to how beautiful Nora is. Nathan turns it around and tries to find who's thinking of Nathan. In doing so, he listens in to Mr. Choke, who happens to be the one behind the murder. He's in his living room, talking to the assassin who demands a spot in Lakeview. Choke is having none of it though, and eventually has his two goons take him away. Checking surveillance logs for additional proof, Nathan notices David Choke talking to Cannerman, who tells the guy to get rid of him. This is, of course, in direct reference to Nathan. As the episode closes out, Craig realizes that he's been hacked as Choke's thoughts are broadcast out for everyone in Lakeview to hear. Now they've got no choice but to shut down Minfrisk. Episode 6 of Upload Season 2 starts with Brian Choke visiting David, telling him there's an important vote coming up. Nora happens to be listening in and encourages Nathan to go on a field trip with her to New York City to investigate further. How is that going to be possible? Well, Nathan can actually buy a reality private tour with Nora as his guide. Essentially, it's one long FaceTime call with a tablet strapped to Nora's chest, so he can essentially see what she sees in her POV. Alicia's joining them too, and she FaceTimes with Luke. The pair head out together, with Nora watching on Twitter as Choke downloads into a robot body. They decide to stop at Choke Tower, which was Nora's plan all along, rather than the random trip she peddled to Alicia. The tablets aren't exactly discreet, and naturally they flash up on the security cameras outside, pinging to Sato, who wonders what they're up to. Nora digs deeper into the Freon situation and realizes there's only one store in New York and one in Law. However, given uploads can vote, the numerous stores appear to have been strategically placed in swing states like Florida. This would then tip the scales of an election. It appears Freon and everything that's been going on is directly linked to politics. However, Alicia calls Nora out for using her and questions just why she's. Meanwhile, Ingrid's digital baby subplot continues as she comes under fire for somehow bringing a digital child from birth to death in less than 24 hours. The AI guy and several other officials are there to grade her on different characteristics and see whether she's actually fit to have kids or not. Although Ingrid gets off to an awful start, she speaks to her mother in the real world, which seems to help fuel her desire to be a better parent. She doesn't want to mess up like she did, and is determined to go down a different path. Ingrid speaks to AI Guy again, and this time gives an impassioned plea which actually helps approve her for the digital baby after all. After being approved, Ingrid heads into a research facility where it seems like Nathan is about to be cloned in a tank, just like the ones we saw earlier in the season. Ingrid promises that he'll be ready soon. Upload Season 2, Episode 7 recap the ending explained. It turns out Mr. Choke, the X-Files' William B. Davis, and Ingrid's father, Mr. Cannerman, used Nathan's, Robbie Amell, code to create Freon. It was equipped with security to unlock Nathan's retina, but he no longer has them to beat the scan. Finally, Nora, Chicago fires Andy Allo, lets Nathan know that she is no longer going out with Mateo, Royal Pains Paulo Costanzo. Let's get this out of the way. Lucy, episode's Andrea Rosen, promotes Alicia again. She is about to move into an apartment with massage walls, you read that right, and will now make 6 figures. Now, back to the main plot of this episode. Nora heads back to Lud's, and Nathan feels ashamed about sending her back to danger. Luke, Siren's Kevin Bigley, continues to fiercely protect his best friend's self-esteem by aggressively shooting down Nathan's negative self-talk. He even starts to let him know they can have a sleepover and talk things out, because we all need to take our self-care seriously, right? To make matters more stressful, Nathan sees a poster where either partner can carry the baby, which brings this to a question. If Ingrid Briarpich's Allegra Edwards has not uploaded, how can she digitally be pregnant? But the doctor sweetens the pot by saying that it can be any fluid he wants when the water breaks from Gatorade to chocolate milk. Then Ingrid makes the big reveal, and after Nathan tells her he can't have the baby now, she is 90% the way there regrowing him so he can download. Oh, and second, surprise, she is not uploaded either. Nathan then tells her he owes her nothing and leaves her. When he calls Nora, they plan to grab Nathan's body with a hyperloop in Los Angeles. They find Ingrid talking to Nathan in the moon pool when they reach the warehouse. She is about to pull the plug on him after seeing Nora and the rest of the Luds. She convinces the crazy blonde not to kill him. After several failed attempts to drag Nathan's slippery body out of the pool and into the download area, it works without his head exploding. He says his goodbyes to Ingrid and thanks her for what she did. She heartbreakingly tells him that she always wanted him to look at her like Nathan looks at Nora. The final scenes leave Upload on a cliffhanger, I'm afraid. They go and take the honeymoon suite on the Hyperloop. They are headed now back to New York City. Meanwhile, Trinity, Nathan's new angel, who still has a crush on him, cannot locate him in the system. Ingrid finds one of her ex-boyfriend's brown hairs in an old comb he kept at her place. She indicates she will use the DNA from the hair to grow her own, I presume, baby Nathan. Finally, when Nathan wakes up that night after spending the night with Nora, he splashes water on his face. He then feels blood on his hand and sees his nose is bleeding. What did you think of Amazon's Upload Season 2 and the ending? Let us know in the comments box.